welcome to Jay's Giants. Today we're going to go over a little bit of soil prep and seed selection. I'm going to try to make this quick. I got a lot of time lapse to show you guys, which I'm going to try to voice over to that to explain what's going on. I'm also going to post a picture of my soil test, and then I will go into the details of what I amended my soil with. I'm not going to give any amounts because what works in my patch isn't going to work in your patch. So you take that with a grain of salt, but here goes. So for my main competition plant, I'm going with the 2405 Eric Gunstrom seed. This seed is a Pennsylvania state record. It grew 17% heavy and was a beautiful orange fruit. And for a backup for that, I have the 2342 Stelz. It went 13% heavy. It was a 1959 Deletus crossed with the 1885 Werner, which that 1885 Werner was ended up being 1912 pounds. It was a beautiful orange pumpkin. So I'm also doing the 150 square foot competition. I just signed up this week, so I decided that I was gonna grow an extra plant this year, because I just can't see myself only growing one plant or two plants. Anyways, for the 150 square foot competition, I will be growing my 1133 squash that I grew last year. This was a 1838 Jutras that I crossed with 2145 McMullen, and it was a nice dark green fruit, and I'm hoping to either self this or cross it with another squash, which I'll go over here in a second. If I self it, seeds from this year's fruit should have a 25% chance of growing a greenie, and if I cross this year's fruit with another squash, then the seeds should have a 50% chance of growing a greenie next year. Now on to my squash selections. I've been sitting on this 927 Jutras for a few years now. Joe was gracious enough to give me the seed, and I want to grow it. So it is going in a long, narrow patch, probably 180 square feet or so. We're just gonna see what we can do. Like I said, I'm hoping to cross this 927 into my 1133 from last year. A lot of it's going to be dependent on what males are available at the time of pollination. And the backup to the 927 is going to be the 1807.5 Holub squash. This squash is known to produce some nice greenies. So that is my seed selection for this year. And just want to show you guys, been doing some test plants, and I made up a batch of Coco Core. I'm not exactly sure how to pronounce that. I buffered it and I added in a bunch of perlite to it, and I started these seeds directly into the soil mix. It was heated in my germination chamber. These little plants are 7 days old, which for 7 days they don't seem bad. Maybe wish the first true leaves were a little bigger, but they're getting there. Overall, plants look green, nice and healthy. Then I have another plant that is 17 days old. Oh, those other two are my 1133s. And this is also the 1133. This plant is 17 days old. As you can see, it's in a tiny little pot. You can't expect much from it, but I love what it's doing. This plant looks great for me. I typically have burnt leaves. This one seems like it's really nice. I've been growing this one under my LEDs, which I typically avoid for pumpkins because they seem like, for me at least, I always burn the edges of the leaves. So we'll see. I think this year I'm gonna put all my AGs under the LED lights. So let's get on with the time lapses, and glad you're following along with Pumpkin Wars Season 2.0. Don't forget that you have to vote for your team by May 31st, and Team J is the way to go. I appreciate anybody that voted for me and anybody that decides to go with me. I think I have a good shot of winning it all. All right, thank you. Over and out. Here's my soil test. Might have to pause and zoom in on that. Not too bad. A little bit of room for improvement. A couple of the products that I use, I'm gonna post up here in a second. I get these from Alpha Chemicals online. They're very reasonably priced. I highly recommend using them for supplements to get your soil amended. Here, while I change out my rototiller to my subsoiler, I'm going to let you guys know that I added sulfate of potash, Epsom salt, borax, kelp, alfalfa meal, humic acid, manganese sulfate, zinc sulfate, and elemental sulfur to get my pH down. It was sitting at 7.2, and I added enough sulfur to bring it down to about 6.8. Here I'm using the subsoiler, just going around and around and around, trying to get down deep to break up soil as best as I can. This thing is actually a lifesaver. I normally would use a broad fork to do this, which is very hard on the back and very time consuming. I am so happy I made this purchase, well worth it. Here, just an overview of one of my small patches. That's my goat house, and that's my big patch down there. Of course, it rained after I drug the subsoilers through that, so it made a mess. Here is the cocoa car that I made. Now I'm getting ready to bury some heating cables. First I got my little Mantis tiller and plowed up the area where I wanted to get the soil cables in. Then I kind of used the tiller to drag the soil back out so I don't have as much shoveling to do. Camera fell over in the wind. There's a hole I got. Then I came in here, cleaned it out a bit. I went down about 12 inches, 10 to 12 inches. Just as I started to hit the clay, I stopped digging, and I like to put the soil cables in like this, using the bamboo rods. It holds it in place really well. See, throw the dirt on top, and then pull out the bamboo, and you're good to go. I typically don't bury the crimped ends of the soil cables, actually the gutter cables, because I've had water get into them before and short them out. So I recommend leaving them out of the ground. Here we're just doing a little bit more raking and getting everything flattened out and get the bigger clumps taken out and getting ready to put the hoop house in place. So I build my hoop houses out of 1/2-inch PVC pipe. I leave them in throughout the season because once the plants grow over those white support pieces that are on the bottom, just can't get them out. I also use a greenhouse plastic. This is actual greenhouse plastic that I got from a friend of mine that works out really good. I think this is about the 3rd year I've been using this same material, and it's still in very good shape. I'd recommend buying the 6mm greenhouse plastic over the stuff you can buy at Lowe's or Home Depot. So now that the subsoiling's done and my hoop house is in place, it's time to do my first rototill pass. Actually haven't added the amendment yet. I will do that later. I don't want to put them in too soon and then have some of them get leached out of the soil. So here I am, changing out the rototiller. It's kind of a pain, but man, does it work fast compared to doing it by hand. I bet here it took me maybe 20 minutes to do this, do my big patch. And if I had to do this by hand, it would have been a good 2 hours minimum of back-breaking work. This is what it looked like after first till. Sorry, I was kind of filming into the sun here. Soil was a little wet, but with the weather being what it is, you got to take advantage of getting things done when you can. Little still photo of the patch from the other angle. And now I'm getting ready to seed mustard. This is a Kodiak blend. I put on about 2 pounds over this entire area. I'm gonna let that grow as a cover crop and then till it in as the plant reaches that area. Thanks for watching and follow along Pumpkin Wars Season 2.0. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below and I'll try to get back to you as soon as possible.